Well, we are watching international reaction to the UN's top court ruling that Israel immediately put a pause to actions in Gaza and that those in Gaza be protected from acts of genocide.
By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall ensure with immediate effect that its military does not commit any acts described in point 1 above.
So for more on what this ruling means for the war going forward, we are joined this morning by Alex Neve, international human rights lawyer and senior fellow at the University of Ottawa. I know you've also been watching this very closely this morning, Alex. And to clarify, the ICJ has not yet addressed the issue of whether or not Israel's actions constitute genocide. Explain this ruling for us. What does it mean and what does it not mean?
So that obviously is an important first point. This is by no means the final ruling in this matter, and the final ruling could well be up to 2 years down the road. This is an incredibly historic moment, though, where the court has issued temporary, urgent measures that it feels needs to be put in place because they have found that there is plausible reason to believe that there's a possibility of genocide underway in Israel, in Gaza, and that therefore some steps need to be taken to prevent that from getting worse, to stop it from happening if it is happening, and they've specified a number of things that must be done in that direction. And this is absolutely a vindication of South Africa's case of having brought this in the first place, and is now going to need to be taken very seriously, obviously by Israel, but by the entire international community, including Canada.
Alex, perhaps you can clarify something for us. So you mentioned that they issued a number of things that they wanted to do. And important to note that they did not say that they needed a ceasefire, but they wanted to limit the damage and destruction. What are they then asking them for them to do?
So they have specifically called on Israel to ensure that none of its forces commit acts that do come within the Genocide Convention. So that's such things as the killings of members of the protected group here, which is Palestinians in Gaza, serious physical harm on members of the group, the infliction of intolerable conditions of life that may well lead to destruction of members of the group, concerns also about prevention of births amongst members of the group. So there's a lot of very specific acts, all of which, of course, as people have been following the devastating reports and media coverage as to what's been playing out in Gaza, have been happening extensively every single day. They have been decried repeatedly by UN officials, humanitarian agencies, much of which was referred to in the court's ruling, and all of that has to stop. So yes, they didn't make the overarching call that the military operations must end, which is one of the things South Africa had asked for, but they have certainly said that there's a lot that needs to stop, and therefore this at a minimum means that Israel is going to have to dramatically revise and scale back what it's doing in Gaza in order to be in compliance with this ruling.
So what I'm curious about is, but will they? Because the Court of Justices also gave Israel a month to report back on these measures. But we know Prime Minister Netanyahu has said repeatedly he is not going to do a ceasefire. As recently as this weekend, he rejected an offer by Hamas to end the war, even if all hostages were released. So what is the enforcement measure behind this? What is the point of this international exercise if there's no one to enforce it?
Of course, the court did very specifically point out that its ruling is binding, but you're quite right. That's one of the realities of international laws, that we don't have police forces that step in to enforce a ruling like we would expect at national level. And Israel has repeatedly made it very clear that they're not going to comply. Ordinarily, we would then look to the UN Security Council to be the one who would step in to take measures to ensure that the ruling is upheld. But there, of course, we run into the reality of the U.S. veto at the Security Council, which they have been wielding almost consistently, one exception, to shield Israel from any Security Council action. So really, it then shifts to the rest of the international community, including to Canada. Canada has said it is an unwavering supporter of the International Court of Justice. Prime Minister Trudeau and Foreign Affairs Minister Joly repeated that in reference to this case in particular. So Canada is now going to have to step in and very forcefully in its own dealings, its bilateral relationship with Israel, make sure that we're putting all possible political pressure on Israel to comply, and that we're taking steps to ensure that we're not in any way contributing to the harms that the court has now ruled against. And so that means looking at things like our arms trade with Israel, which really has to stop now.
Alex, and that's the reaction we're going to be looking for in the rest of the program this morning and throughout the day here on CTV News. Thanks so much for joining us, Alex, giving us some context around this decision that's come down just moments ago.
Thanks very much. It's a very significant moment.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.